The following video clip was from Monday the 10th of October 2016. I was out with Jamie, who hasn't had the chance due to work and family commitments to get out flying for about a year's time. We discussed in Dundee a number of options of the site to go to. We'd been up to the top of Dundee Law to assess the wind, look at wind turbines, look at the clouds, etc. There was actually a bit of a change of plan. One of the reasons was that Jamie had commented, having seen quite a few of the videos, that he quite fancied having a visit to Lunan Bay, and fortunately, and it was more luck I would say than judgment to some extent, fortunately it did prove that the wind dropped off enough for him to get some flights later on. So this bit is with Jamie working on the safety procedure for laying out in sand or snow, essentially a slippery type surface. So laying out the wind in sand or snow type situations while quite windy, but on a day when with experience it's definitely flyable. The actual wind speed was around about the trim speed of the glider. Certainly at the ridge top at the moment you'd have fair difficulty in launching and going forwards, because it would probably be about 22 knots right on the top launch. Down at the beach it was probably 18 to 20 knots. So we're going through all the procedure, bit of refreshing of stuff that was covered a year ago, and then for safety I'll clip in. Now there's a genuine mistake made here as well, and we use mistakes as training tools to show that even if you're experienced, if you're not 100% on the ball, if you're concentrating on other things, sometimes if you're teaching you can make an error. But the key thing is, if you do make an error while teaching, use it as a lesson. Don't ignore it, don't deny it.
Yes, well done. Now, like that, if a dog was to run through there, is there any distinct pattern? Could you see if that's been moved or pulled? Have you given it much slack? So from there, you've got almost no slack. So I would take it in quite a bit. The wind's blowing it sideways, so just use that to your advantage, but lay it in the neat shape. So a dog runs through, wind catches it, there's a lot more room before it fires up, and it's in a pattern and ease and outwards. Now obviously the tip you can't check fully because we're keeping it set down. Okay, handy hint, if you offset to more on the half wing, you see how there's the centre of the wing? If you offset to the half wing, you then tension up that one. It makes it much easier to see and check. There. Yep. And because the tip's folded in, we'll never be able to check the windward side fully. So that's about as good as you'll get with that. A should be outwards rather than A inwards. Anytime there's an error though, default back to rechecking. We know that's okay, but it's too easy to make a mistake. So default back to there, checking it. You could either lay it next this one, so when you clip in you don't have a long distance to go, and we're just cheating offset because of the wind. Okay so far? Right, round to the harness. Now you won't be clipping into the wing, but if you do everything else, so how are you going to get into the harness? Yep, but is the helmet heavy enough to do the job on its own? So wait, don't lift it, think about what you're going to do. Or kneel on it. Okay, so if you kneel down on the wing, could then put the harness in. Okay? Sure. Yep. And the default in the back of the mind at all times is fall forwards and land on top of the wing type. Ah, toes, toes, toes. See how easy it is to forget that? Whereas if you're kneeling and get back to kneeling immediately, you've got to consciously think about standing up. So back down to kneeling when you're doing that. Yep. So you could do the rest of the buckles while you're kneeling, but how easy was it to step back without realising it? Okay, helmet. And just so you've got your hands free, get the radio on. I say I'm a bit dubious as to whether it will be flyable for you, but it's still good practice for this bit. So, round. No, we don't have to worry about it. Just leave them switched off just now. Mine's in my pocket anyway. Right, so from there, how would you get into the next stage? May I demonstrate? Okay, swapping positions. Now I've got all this slack, so I know that's okay. So I know my orientation. As an extra safety measure, I've got this loop on. You can see the birds up there. Right, so from there, check the feet and reverse back out. Now I'm going to start powering up the tip in a second once I get out here. Checking the airspace. Yeah, I know, I actually had exactly the same thought for a second. Right, so again down, gives me plenty of time to do all my checks. Yep. Now, what's the odds I'm going to need safety risers? Pretty high. So from there, I've got A1, A2, B's, C's, my favourite design, 3 riser design. Acquire, and on the tab, ease off the brake, so yeah, that's good. Acquired, check the airspace, going to power up that tip. Check, slow, slow, slow. Okay, now straight away I can see I've got a problem in that I'm clipped in upside down. Yep, so I'd be flying backwards. So, no problem. Acquire the safety riser. Get the orientation right. but the speed system is going to be crossed. So that's got to be released. So at least I wouldn't be flying backwards, and that was a genuine mistake. So there we've got one. Check the airspace. Two. The routing. So any time, and this, as I say, it was a genuine mistake, it wasn't me doing something clever as a teaching trick, I made an error. But you can see how using the safety procedure is no big deal. Now, what is the one thing that I'm definitely doing wrong at the moment? Look at my feet. So it should be split stance. However, do I do this a lot? Yes. But that doesn't mean it's a clever thing to do. So it should be split stance. When you've got as many thousands of hours, you're so far ahead of the game you can get away with sloppy behaviour, but that is still not an excuse for being sloppy. Okay, so from there back to tactile. Checks. There. Happy enough with that. Cheat high, acquire the safety. Go on the under one. Check. Slide it out. Okay, so if it's too strong, it'll end up top landing and walk down. There's no point walking up. Now, I don't want to lose a lot of distance, so I want to really get the wing up. In these conditions, is it likely it's going to lift me off my feet? Yep. Okay, so the solution is, could do that, but it's your wing and I don't want to drag it about, so that would be an excellent idea though. Other thing I can do, sort of, in stronger conditions the problem is you're lifted off your feet, so the solution is to be lifted on to your feet. So check the airspace, from there ease it high, let it settle, and let it lift me. Yep. Now if I'm going backwards too quickly, what's the trick to speed up the glider? Yeah, if I'm getting pulled back too much? Nope, that would pitch it up. Could I make the glider smaller? Nope, that would tend, it works in the air but not on the ground. When you look at the tip lines go up at a certain angle. Yep. If I go like that, it actually pulls the wingtips in together. Makes the glider fly faster. So when you're that, it's easy to go forwards. Once you're turned round, it tends to be harder. So there tends to take you back. And from that position, flicking, zero brakes, 99% of the weight is on the glider, and it becomes easy to get forwards. When you go round, the tendency is for the hands to come on a bit, to push forward, pitching the wing up, and the tendency is you're taken back. Okay, so at the moment down here, it's not too bad. We still need to know what it's like up there. Cutting back to the ridge, flicking round to give me more control, putting into roll, wait,
It should be very clear from the ease at which I've gained altitude here, wind is decidedly top end. Now, we actually spent the next hour or two doing a lot of groundwork, a lot of control, so ground flying, and a lot of safety procedures down on the beach with Jamie clipped in, and while he was taking breaks I was then taking off and flying up. Good while after that the conditions had dropped to just enough, and I'd done a few touch and goes on the top, so I was 100% confident with that we had Jamie doing an assisted launch from the top. This was his first actual flight, first visit properly to Gorse Ridge Lunan Bay. Well, I think he's been here with the family before to have a look at it, but certainly he's not flown here before. Hadn't flown for a year, and with the radio had him doing a whole load of tasks. So he was doing big ears, he was doing all sorts of different turns, he was flying out almost over the water, coming back in. Essentially a really good training flight, and based on the time codes on the photographs, based on the time codes on the later video, and an estimation of the time prior to starting filming, he did at least a 90-minute flight, and then did a very nice landing down onto the beach just shortly before sundown. So at the moment I'm just doing tests on his wing, doing a demo with big ears etc. at some point, coming back down and land, and then we're back to doing all the ground training. So estimated wind speed at the moment at the top ridge where I wasn't flying to, at the takeoff spot, I would say would be about 23 knots, 24 knots, and later on it dropped down to just launchable, so about 18 to 20 knots. That was just a simple assisted launch. There's big ear, so I can drop the wing back down and then fly back along to return the wing to him, so we can do a lot of ground fly and safety procedure training.
Reaching up for the safeties. Now, two options. If there was a line of bushes here, rather than the safeties, and particularly if I'm very tight on space, I can use the A's. The problem with the A's, which I'll demonstrate, is you've got very limited window to do all the actions. So, turning round, firing the A's in a second. Wait until it's rolled steady. Now I've got a couple of seconds to get the safety, so from there, if you don't get the safeties, it can give a sudden recovery and then whip you back up. But if you do get the safeties, it comes down. Now that was very smooth and nice up there, but could get a lot left and then go back. So I think if we are going to do any flying, what we'll do is do a quick fold, walk up to the top and see if it's possible to launch from the top. I'd rather say forget the day, and head back than push the limits, particularly if you haven't been out for a year. So no, I didn't even bother. So long as I was out over the beach line, no problem at all, but you've only got seconds. You saw me big ears? Yeah, so I went out front, getting higher suddenly, big ears on. This wing comes down really well with big ears because there's quite a big collapse, down and landed. But if you're getting blown back there, I think today there's going to be too much lift, you've got to be blown back and high, and you don't want to risk that with then the collapse. So, shut this down.